Okay, well, my computer did too. Okay, so with that, I get my flag ready. And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town Board of the Town of Ossining regular meeting for Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Councilmember Shaw,
Present.
Councilmember Meyer,
Present.
Councilmember Wiltshire,
Present.
Supervisor Levenberg.
I'm here.
We're gonna start with the public hearings. The first one being for local law 4 of 2021, regulations for boat launch at Lewis H. Ungo Jr. Park.
All right, so thank you for that. And as mentioned, we're starting this evening with 3 public hearings. The first one is on a local law establishing regulations for Lewis Angle Park boat launch. Before we open it up to the public for comments, Councilwoman Feldman, I think you had a few comments about terminology that was used in the law. Do you want to just explain that? Because I think we're going to end up needing to clean that up before we put it up for a resolution to vote.
Sure. We were referring to the ramp, the concrete pad as the launch, and that's the ramp. And we were referring to the docks as the ramp. So we just, I had a whole conversation with Christy, so I think we have it straight now.
Okie doke,
I believe
fantastic.
we have it straight, right?
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you want to see changed, so we can easily incorporate that and put it on. If the board is inclined, I can draft a resolution for the board's consideration at the next meeting.
I am inclined to clean up the terminology to make it crystal clear and make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. So I think that sounds great. And with that, I'm just going to open it up to the public for comment. If there is anybody in our Zoom audience who is here to comment on this proposed local law, please raise your virtual hand. We will wait a couple seconds to see if anybody's raising said virtual hand. And I see nobody doing so. So we are going to, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn this public hearing to our May 11th legislative session so that we can tweak the language, make sure that the terminology is all correct, put it back up, and then we'll also have a resolution prepared for that evening to vote on. If everybody's good with that. Do I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing to our May 11th session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Fantastic. Next up, we have local law 5 of 2021, adding provisions for a local energy code under chapter 63, building construction of the town code. This is a local law basically to adopt the New York stretch energy codes. The legislation was developed based upon a template from NYSERDA to basically increase the elements of the state building code to make sure buildings are built with more stringent regulations that make them more energy resilient, less energy reliant. New York State will probably officially adopt this, these more stringent standards anyway in the near future, but until that time, and maybe that takes them a little longer, these stretch codes are in place so that municipalities can get a jump start on energy efficiency building requirements. Council Tom Madonna, is there anything that you wanted to add? I think you had noted in the law, maybe where you deviated from the template based upon our discussions at our last work session, and if there's a couple of things that you wanted the town board to comment on before we go into anything else.
Sure. Just also to point out, my understanding is that by adopting this, you guys would get points toward your
That's right.
Your system.
Clean energy.
The terminology escapes me, but yeah.
Yeah, clean energy.
So that's another benefit of the board considering this. So yes, NYSERDA does really do a lot to help municipalities in looking at pursuing these opportunities. They did provide a template local law and resolution. There were certain ways that we had discussed with the board at the last work session that we may want to kind of incorporate specific concepts, and those, so just to be clear, the local law itself references the stretch code, but it's not all contained in the stretch code, but that is separately made available to the public. And as part of the local law, that is one of the aspects that I added. That stretch will be available for public inspection on the Town of Ossining website, in the town clerk's office, and in the town building department. The document itself is 70, 60 some odd pages. So it's really just not feasible to put the entire thing in the code. So the resolution does contemplate that you just adopt, you reference it in the local law. So that's what we're doing. So that was one of the things I added. The other one derives from a conversation that we had with the board, and that I also separately had with the town's planner, Valerie Menastra, which is the timing of it going into effect, and also the projects that would be affected by it. So anticipating this can also always be changed, that it may be adopted, or the board may be willing to consider it for adoption at your next meeting on May 11th. That would give us time to comply with the administrative requirements, because we have to separately notify the state if the town is going to adopt building code provisions that are more stringent than what is currently in the building code. Obviously, the state knows about this, and NYSERDA is an arm of the state. So we put that it would go into effect June 1st, 2021. And then the other aspect of it is that Valerie and I discussed that if any project has already received any sort of land use approval, whether it's zoning board, architectural review board, planning board, or from this board, if it does involve a zone change, although I do not anticipate that being the case prior to June 1st, or if they've already obtained a building permit prior to June 1st, then they would not be required to comply with this, because at this point, they've already gone through significant planning for their project without anticipating that this would be on the books. So it seems like an equitable way to quickly incorporate it into the code, but still give sort of
Grandfather.
some leniency, yeah, to those projects that have already been in the works and have already been putting in the time and money into doing their planning, not realizing this could potentially be applicable to them. So those are really the substantive changes that added to the local law beyond what NYSERDA had provided.
Great. And as long as that doesn't compromise our ability to receive those credits, and I think it wouldn't, as long as, again, we're just referencing the stretch codes, and that's what we're adopting, and the other part of, like, exactly when it goes into effect, it, for whom is, doesn't, again, compromise our ability to do that, I think then we're fine.
Right, and so I think that's kind of also part of my recommendation for the board to hold this over to the next meeting, because it might be useful to just run this by NYSERDA or your contacts.
Right.
We had that long work session last week. I'm sure there's a plethora of people who we could speak to just kind of confirm that that is the case. But substantively, we're not changing anything, or the way it was drafted, it's not proposing to change anything about the code itself. Like you were saying, Supervisor, it's really just timing and who it would apply to, and making it more available to the public, or ensuring it is available to the public.
Okay, so if there's nothing to be added from the town council members, then I would open it up to the public for public comment on the New York Stretch Code proposed local law. Is there anybody here who would like to comment on that? And if so, could you please raise your virtual hand? Going once, going twice. If you, for any reason, just roll over the bottom bar where it says raise hand, you raise your little hand. Seeing nobody, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn this public hearing to our May 11th legislative session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. So the last of the 3 public hearings for tonight is for a local law to adopt a special events policy, and it's local law 6 of 2021 currently, adopting a new chapter 166 special events, parades, and public gatherings of the Town of Ossining Code. This effort started following the Village of Ossining's adoption of a similar policy earlier this year. The village had been working on their legislation for close to 1 year, seeking input from stakeholders and community members, many of whom are overlapping with us. Once the law was adopted by the village board, our shared recreation superintendent, Bill Garrison, requested that the town adopt the same general policy with both town and village special events administered out of his department. It seemed to make sense that the town would consider adopting similar policies and procedures, both for the ease of administration for our staff and to maintain consistency for the public's benefit. We've discussed this now 2 work sessions, adapted the legislation in areas where it made the most sense for the town, and tonight is our first public hearing on this proposed town local law. So with that, unless Councilor O'Donnell, you have anything to add, I would open it up to the public for comment. Hearing nothing from you, Christy, I'm going to open it up to the public for comment. Is there anybody here who wanted to comment on the special events policy revisions? Draft local law. Thinking that that's why some of you are here, I'm going to give you a couple of extra minutos to raise your virtual hand. While I'm waiting for any of those hands to be raised, is there anybody on the town board who wanted to comment on this proposed local law?
I think we got it down to something manageable from what the original draft was a little overwhelming. So I'm happy with where we ended up.
Okay. And seeing a few people from our rec advisory board in the audience. None of you wanted to comment? Oh, Pamela Nelson. We shall recognize you. Okay, here you come. Okay,
Can you hear me now? Can you
Yes,
hear me?
yes.
Okay, because I can't see myself on the screen, so I don't know what's happening. So, how do you? I just saw it and I said, this sounds interesting. So, is it just for big events, or does this also?
Mix and match. It's also
It's on your own property, and if it's in your own home, on your, do you still have to apply for this permit?
Not really, no. I mean, there's very little anything that applies to any private homes. We really cut that out. That was something actually that was sort of part of the village policy that we didn't think was really applicable. So we didn't adopt that. Most of what we're looking at are just for the parks and
Okay.
public spaces. Yeah, and just to make it more in line with, making sure that it's sort of, we dot all the I's and cross all the T's, just like we do for like cabaret licenses and cabaret permits and things of that nature. We wanted to make sure we were doing the same thing with permits for the town for parks and fields and pavilions and all the stuff that you guys think about and talk about it at the rec advisory board.
Okay, so basically that if you're leaving the town, you don't have to, and you're doing something on your property, you don't really have to get a permit.
That's correct.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Wasn't the only exception if you needed traffic control by an officer or something?
I don't.
Yeah, Christy, do you want to comment on that at all for any of those little
I
details?
don't. Are you asking me if I'm going to
No.
need
Oh,
that?
I'm not asking.
No.
Oh,
I'm just saying that would be a possible exception. If you
Okay.
needed us to have traffic control or some officers.
That was like for a block party. If you're closing off of a block there and you needed traffic control, or if
Right.
you had a large party that you were hosting on somebody else's behalf, I think, and you needed traffic control.
So they're in proposed section 166-4, permit not required. It talks about basically private parties that you may have on your property. a wedding, birthday party, family reunion, graduation party, religious observances, or other similar gatherings limited to the invited guests held on private property with the consent of the property owner. So if
Okay, so this is number 7 and 166-4, right? Is that what you're
Yes.
referencing?
yes.
Okay, this is,
So-
I mean, the property is
was-
big enough to hold everybody. I don't think there'd be any overflow in the street. But I just wanted to make sure that that if we do need a permit, we get to the right place and make sure that happens, so.
You can definitely call the building inspector, the building department to just double check. If
Okay.
you think that there's any question, or, also our recreation department, but right now, I mean, A, we haven't adopted it yet. I don't exactly know if you have a specific party that you're thinking about. But B, it doesn't look like we're going to be regulating those sorts of events on private property, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna say bye to you now. And is there anybody else who had any other comments or anything from the public? Okay. So with that, I'm going to say that we still have a little bit more feedback that we want to gather from our town department heads on this local law before we finalize it. So I would ask for a motion to adjourn this public hearing to our, guess what, May 11th legislative session.
So move.
So move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Fantastic. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn to work session, a little unusual for us, but here we go.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So thank you. Oh, all those in favor? Sorry, we didn't vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Back in January, the town board heard from our Village of Ossining manager, Karen Torrey, and assistant village manager, Maddie Zahach, with a request for the town to consider exempting from the tax roll the village-owned properties necessary for the treatment and distribution of our shared water system. It does seem a bit odd that the town collects taxes from the Village of Ossining on properties that supply water to residents in both the village and the town of Ossining. Having these properties on the tax roll also places a growing burden on the water ratepayers in both the town and village, as the village embarks on the construction of a much needed new water treatment plant, which will benefit all public water users. With the anticipation of the added value and therefore increasing tax bill on these water properties as a result of the new treatment facility, the village has formally requested of the remaining taxing jurisdictions, including the town, to consider exempting these properties. Westchester County already exempted these properties a few years back. This certainly seems to make sense, as residents of the town, unincorporated town, would be feeling the burden of an increased water bill at an estimated increase of $370 per year per ratepayer if we were to not exempt the properties. I would like to turn the board's attention to the resolution on our agenda for later this evening, which spells out the important reasons why the town board could consider exempting these properties. I don't know if we want to bring that up for looking at. During this work session discussion, the board will have an opportunity to discuss this before voting, since we have not discussed it at a work session since the initial presentation in January. Do my board colleagues have any comments or questions that they would like to discuss about this resolution? It is going to be read, during our regular legislative portion of the meeting as we go through the resolutions. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions or wants to discuss anything.
No, I mean, I'm pretty confident after going over the numbers and, the presentation that this makes sense for all of our town people. So I'm comfortable with this. It's silly for us to be taxing our own utilities anyway.
I wholeheartedly agree. Anybody have any other concerns, issues, questions, discussion? And I'm seeing none of my board colleagues looking like they do. And Therefore, I'm going to ask if I can therefore have a motion to adjourn back to our legislative session. Unless, before I do that, Council Tomadonna, did you have anything that you wanted to add or ask or anything?
I mean, I think you pretty much said it all very clearly. The resolution that was drafted was a combination of input that we received from the village back when they presented, and then the board's thoughts on the issues as well. So we tried to make it as comprehensive as possible so that it reflects the understanding and the intention that this obviously is not obviously, but it is permitted under law, and that provision of real property tax law that allows this is cited in the resolution itself. So it's something the board could do, but it has to be done by written agreement. So it's drafted so that this resolution serves that purpose. If afterwards, if the board does go forward with approving the resolution, we can certainly work with the village and the assessor and any other departments to provide them with whatever documentation they may need.
All right. Okay, so with that, could I have a motion to adjourn back to our legislative session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. So with that, I am going to go into some announcements. Last night, the Ossining Community Equity Task Force hosted its first town hall event. Panelists discussed how the pandemic has put a spotlight on issues of inequity, from food insecurity and unstable broadband connections to the impact on education and access to healthcare services. The town hall was live streamed on Facebook on the Equity Facebook page. The evening was very informative, and I encourage everyone to check it out. If you're interested in being involved in the task force, please email equity@townofossining.com. Special thanks to Susie Ross and Green Ossining for putting together such a, I do want to give a shout out to Jackie Shaw, Councilwoman, because she and Dr. Ann Dealey and Justin Knowles, who's a student at OHS, did a fantastic presentation last night on the Ossining School District Equity Task Force and all of the incredible work that they have done. And they really have done a lot of work, and there's lots to learn. I have to say that the library is also doing a phenomenal job looking at their collections. And we heard from Open Door, Neighbors Link. We heard from Kemi Pogue and Home Run Against Drugs. We heard from, I'm just having like one of those mental moments, help with our friend from Pace University. I'm just having anybody? Jackie?
Jerome Smith.
Say it again?
Jerome Smith.
No, not Jerry. Not his.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. Anyway.
Jermaine?
Thank you, Jermaine.
Jermaine,
Yes,
sorry.
Jermaine. Okay, Jermaine. I'm sorry, Jermaine. I absolutely know your name. I just had a mental block, senior moment. Jermaine, who talked about the digital divide, and again, from our co-chairs of the task force, Althema Goodson and Sandy McAllister. And they really did a great job kind of weaving sort of the story of the task force, how it came together. And we heard also from the mayor and talking about a lot of the work that we've done during the pandemic. But the school district, I think, was stellar. So thank you for that, Jackie Shaw. Okay. Anyway, special thanks to Susie Ross and Green Ossining for putting together such a fantastic calendar of Earth Week events. This year's festival wrapped up Sunday, and it was great to see so many people join in. I joined Alicia Simpson of the Crossover Yoga Project on Saturday for some morning yoga at the waterfront, grounding with Mother Earth. This event will actually be continued as part of our Mind, Body, Spirit Ossining free summer wellness program. If you want to keep Earth Week going, good news. There's still time to sign up for Community Solar. Go to sustainablewestchester.org tonight and find out how you can tap the power of the sun without having to cut down trees or put solar panels up on your roof. And you can do so from a local collection site in Ossining and save money on your electricity bill. Other ways to continue showing your love of our earth, Green Austin is hosting their community-wide tag sale this weekend from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The tag sale is a biannual tradition to help residents of Austin and Briarcliff declutter their homes without adding to growing landfills, paying it forward to other people who would take those clutters and lovingly include them. Unfortunately, the registration to participate in the tag sale has passed, but you can still do some shopping this weekend. Visit greenoustin.org for the map of properties that are participating. Councilwoman Feldman, did you want to add to that?
I do. There are 52 different households.
Fantastic. That's quite a lot. That's great. A lot of people had a lot of time to go through all their stuff over this last year. So I was not one of them, although I have plenty of stuff that I should have gone through. So we were instead trying to keep up with pandemic outreach to the town. Austin is very lucky to have a number of other earth-friendly activities still in the hopper. The Riverkeeper Sweep will take place on Saturday at Engle Park, the Sing Sing Kill, and the Old Croton Aqueduct at Gerlach Park. The Austin Parks Habitat Stewards are also leading an invasive species removal at Rioter Park via I Love My Parks Day, which is also the same day. And there is work to be done at other spots on the aqueduct as well, thanks to community members Daria Gregg, Susie Ross, Donna Sharrett, and Patrick Vipperman, and even Gareth Hoffman from FAR for hosting and organizing these events. And my friend just over the border in, I think, town of Cortland, Diane Alden, for being an inspiration to many, leading the way and being such a great environmental steward. And she'll be hosting the I Love My Parks Day at the Croton Aqueduct on Quaker Bridge Road. The Riverkeeper Sweep has cleaned out over 4 tons of trash from Austin waterways over the past decade. To register for Saturday's cleanup events, including the invasive species removal, visit riverkeeper.org or I Love My Parks Day at parks.ny.gov/events/my-park-day, or just Google I Love My Parks Day New York and you'll find it. And you can find your park and pick it. A lot of them are already filled up, I can tell you, because I tried. But I'll be popping in. I can tell you that. This afternoon, I participated in a meeting with representatives from Sustainable Westchester to discuss our ongoing campaigns to lower energy costs for Town of Austin residents and collectively reduce our carbon footprint. Sustainable Westchester is an excellent resource for anyone looking for guidance on these topics. The Grid Rewards app was developed to help Con Ed customers earn cash when they reduce their impact on the energy grid during peak hours. You must sign up by Friday to be eligible for the most cash rewards. As I mentioned earlier, the community solar program can help residents lower their electric bill by up to 10%. And for anyone who needs a new hot water heater or just wants to save money on their regular heating and cooling costs, I recommend looking into the Energy Smart Homes program. The town has hosted quite a few virtual discussions on these programs. Yes, we're still talking about them because we're still in the middle of the campaign. So we're going to just keep talking about them until we're at the end of the campaign. Last week, we were joined at our board meeting by several members of the Sustainable Westchester team to share more information about the programs. You can visit the town Facebook page to watch recordings of our meetings and past webinars. There's another one coming up in Spanish. I believe it is May 12th. And then I think our final one will be May 20th. And we're also going to be meeting soon with realtors to talk to them about some of the programs. You should also visit sustainablewestchester.org. The 2021 town and county tax bills are due on Friday, April 30th. The easiest way to pay is online via Express Pay. I want to tell you that our tax receiver is saying everybody's been doing such a great job, so keep up the great work. Express Pay is available through the town's website. You can also pay via mail or by placing your stamped envelope in the dedicated mail slot at the Austin Post Office lobby, which gets delivered directly, does not pass go, does not collect $200 to our offices, and doesn't get processed through White Plains, which is what I was talking about. Or you can still stop by in person at Town Hall 16 Croton Avenue, where the tax office is set up to take payments in the lobby between 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. But guess what? Special Friday. Tax receiver Holly Perlowitz has arranged to keep the building open for in-person payments until 7 p.m. She is the bomb. We do not recommend using online bill pay through your bank this late in the month. Your payment will likely not make it to our office on time, and those checks are often mailed without a postmark, so they will not be able to be considered paid timely, even if you made the request timely. So instead, use our Express Pay feature, which is available for safe, easy, and timely, important online payments through the April 30th deadline. If you have questions about your town county taxes, just give the tax office a call at 914-762-8790 or email hperlowitz@townofaustining.com. And finally, please remember that we are not out of the woods yet with COVID-19, as we can unfortunately witness through the surges in cases occurring across the country and certainly around the world. The best way for us to end the pandemic is to get vaccinated. The CDC released some new guidance today, reducing the requirements for fully vaccinated people to wear masks while engaging in some outdoor activities, which is certainly promising and actually is incentive to get the vaccine. However, in the United States, we have seen a decline in vaccinations per day, which illustrates that most people who want to receive the vaccine already have. And there is still a large fraction of the eligible population who have not gotten vaccinated or even decided to skip their second dose. Please, please, please get vaccinated. Be sure to receive all of your required doses. I promise the second vaccine side effects are not that bad. They're certainly much better than if you get COVID. And you will get closer to being able to enjoy the great outdoors without wearing a mask and gather safely with family and friends. Administration of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, as everybody's heard, has resumed in the United States now, with a warning to recipients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals regarding the extremely rare blood clotting disorder observed in some recipients of the J&J vaccine. Westchester County continues to offer appointments at their county-run sites at Westchester Community College and Westchester County Department of Health. Walk-ins are now allowed for people ages 60 and up at all state-run sites like Westchester County Center, and as of this Thursday, they will be open to anyone over 16 walk-ins. Most local pharmacies have appointments readily available. I know I just called one today and found out that they have appointments available tomorrow from 10 to 3. It looks like OVAC will be visiting some of our neighbors who are homebound this Thursday, thanks to our work with them and the county and our Vaccine Angels group who helped get them scheduled. Big shout out to OVAC Chief Nick Franzoso for his persistence, and Merla Morrison, one of our great Vaccine Angel volunteers, for single-handedly confirming all of the appointments for this Thursday. If you or someone you know would like to be added to the list for homebound vaccines, please email us otownvaccineangels@gmail.com or call 914-236-4567. These volunteers have all done such an incredible job. Now that it's much easier to find and book an appointment for a vaccine, they are winding down, but are certainly still there to help and are a wealth of information. And of course, if you've not been vaccinated and are experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, get tested. There are many local sites with testing available, including our friends at OVAC, as well as Open Door. We post many of these resources on our town website and via our town social media accounts. But if you have any questions about vaccinations or about testing or need help accessing any information whatsoever, please don't hesitate to reach out to my office at 914-762-6001. Any other announcements from any of my board colleagues? I couldn't possibly have covered it all. Okay, thank you so much. And with that, are there any liaison reports from anybody?
I just want to thank OVAC for all they've been doing above and beyond for the testing, for the vaccines, for just continuing to push and make sure that we have everything we need for our community. So a big thank you to them, Nick and all those members.
One little shout out to our Senate and Assembly members, Elijah Reichlin Melnick, Senator, and Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff had a little meeting with a couple of us this evening from Village of Ossining and Town of Ossining to talk about what was in it what was in the state budget for us. There are a lot of increases in some of the local funding we just found out about. We knew that it was in there, but we're just starting to see what the runs look like for the town and the villages. And there are some, significant increases specifically in funding for roads and bridges and things like that. Austin, a town, has never gotten a lot of money from the CHIPS funding, from the Emergency Winter Recovery Fund, from paving. We're going to look into see what it is about the formula that, for whatever reason, town doesn't get that much. But meanwhile, there was some new fund, and we're still trying to figure out why, but it looks like we got possibly $185,000, which is more than zero for what we've never gotten before for the town. We're still trying to figure out why we're one of the few municipalities that seems to have gotten that, with 0.74 miles in the town that are applicable as interstates, parkways, state highway, and scenic byways. We've already spent it, don't worry. And it's all going back to you, our taxpayers, our road users, and our infrastructure users, which is you, the people. So we will make sure that we put it to good use when we find out exactly how we're allowed to use it. And we should be getting that in the coming weeks. I guess we'll know more about. But anyway, it's a lot of good news. As everybody knows, the school district got a lot more money than they anticipated. Everybody got a lot more money than they anticipated because of the federal funding that came through. And so we're grateful to our federal legislators as well. Councilman Feldman, did you have, Councilman Shaw, do you have anything that you wanted to add? I know because you were able to participate in that phone call too.
I think you covered it. It was a lot of good news. We weren't expecting good news. So to get good news from the budget, it's just very exciting. So I'm looking forward to it.
I had somebody forwarded me the specific formulas for the CHIPS funding changes. So I'll forward those to you.
No. That's not, it's not the changes.
Well, the added.
That's not what we were asking about. We know, I mean, we have the percentage increases. It's like 29% in CHIPS increase. It was like 50% in the Pave New York increase. We know what all those are. We're just trying to figure out why the base formula for town of Ossining is so lame as compared to the villages. So our Senate and Assembly members are going to dig into that a little bit and get back to us. Their answers are not immediately available, I don't believe.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll forward you what I have anyway.
I would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we're going on into our regular meeting because there are no liaison reports, I believe, right? Okay, so is there anybody here from the public who had any comments on any agenda item? Anything that's on the agenda for this evening that you would like to comment on? If so, could you please raise your virtual hand? And I see Pat Yost is in the audience. And if we can unmute him, hello.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about the background noise of driving and wasn't able to get to where I needed to soon enough. I actually, the reason I was joining tonight was to comment on the boat ramp law. I joined late, so I missed that. So I didn't know if that was still open for comment or not.
No, but go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. If it's more appropriate, I can.
It's okay. Just go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. You're driving. You whatever. If you pulled over to the side.
I can type up today. Okay. So sorry for the trouble. I guess I had a couple of comments after reading through it. One, generally I agree with the concept that the use of the boat ramp should be kind of monitored and regulated, and that people should have a permit, and the permit should include making sure that the trailer is registered and all that sort of stuff. So I totally agree with that. I agree that there should be different, day permit, and I agree that there should be like an annual permit. A couple things that I did want to comment on. I thought that the limitation of the use of the parking spots to annual permits only, to me, was something that I'd suggest to reconsider. Most of the boat ramps that I've been that I've used over 30 years of boating and fishing and stuff like that. The spots that are close to the boat ramps are generally also used for day people who are coming in to do day trips. So if you drop off your boat in the morning, you go out for a day cruise, maybe up and down the river somewhere, you could do a little fishing, and then you come back and then you can take the boat. As the law was currently proposed, that it's only for the annual people, as opposed to the day folks. And so the question then becomes, if someone's down there doing a day trip, where do they park the boat? Where do they park their trailer? There's no other space for them to do that, and so that should be taken into consideration. And then I think that by limiting it to the annual permit holders only, that it kind of caused for me, got to ask the question, what's the purpose of the law? Is it the purpose of the law to just simply create parking spots for the boats, or is it to help create an easy means of flow into and out of the ramp over the course of the summer and in a busy morning, or to encourage more people to come down and use the waterfront and use our facilities, and hopefully take advantage of the great resource that we have down there. So personally, I'm a fan of doing what we can to increase the water use. And from my perspective, if if a boat's parked there for the summer because they've got an annual permit, that that limits the potential use of those spaces and makes them more broadly desirable. I guess the two other comments I had were, if a third party or OBCC is going to be the one who's regulating and enforcing the code, I'd hope that there'd be some specific training and guidance written up in order to help kind of execute whatever they're supposed to be executing in terms of enforcing the regulation and stuff like that. And if part of it's for the weekend in terms of people being able to buy day passes, then there should be some set kind of guidance on the hours that they're going to be available, because people launch boats very early in the morning, and if they don't have a day permit, somebody needs to be able to be there to let them buy the day permit, kind of a thing. And then the last comment I had was more of a wording, and I forget specifically what section it is, but in one of the introductory sections, you speak to the fact that the town can put in a ramp on an annual basis. And my only question was, are you really meaning to use the word dock there? Because the ramp is actually the concrete thing that goes into the water and stays there. It's the dock that the Parks Department puts in and out on an annual basis. So, and that's what I had.
Thank you for your comments. As far as the terminology that you just referenced, I just want to let you know that we did discuss that earlier.
Sorry about that.
The part that you missed.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any of the work sessions, but there is an explanation as to why the permitting was going to be for the annual users, which is basically the cost of 2 day permits, essentially. So you can take a look at, maybe, I don't know if you had a chance to, but I would just suggest that you might want to watch the work session discussions about that. And thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, so back to our regular meeting now, because if we could just add those comments to the public hearing comments from the boat ramp local law discussion. And that's for our deputy clerk, Kudasaka. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we're going to go in again, just to make sure that there's nobody here for public comment on any of the agenda items. Hearing none, we are going to go into our board resolutions. Please take us through, Deputy Clerk.
Okay, approval of minutes, regular meeting, April 13th, 2021. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby approves the April 13th, 2021 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay. Approval of voucher detail report. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining hereby approves a voucher detail report dated April 27th, 2021 in the amount of $257,216.43.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Call for public hearing, Community Development Block Grant 2022 to 2024 application cycle. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining hereby calls for a public hearing in the matter of the town's application to the Community Development Block Grant 2022 to 2024 application cycle as part of the Westchester County Urban County Consortium to be held at 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, May 11th, 2021, and be it further resolved that pursuant to the governor's executive orders 202.1 and 22.15 and subsequently extended, this public hearing will be held via video conferencing only, with the information to participate in the public hearing to be duly noticed and circulated in accordance with the requirements for notice of public hearings.
Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
So this year, another round of CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funding, will become available to the town through the Westchester County administered Urban County Consortium. As part of the requirements for CDBG, the town must hold a public hearing for the public to be heard on potential projects the town should consider applying for. At last week's town board meeting, we heard from our town planner, Valerie Monastra, about some of the parameters of this grant opportunity. It's likely that our best bet for eligibility will be to apply for projects within Lewis Angle Park. It is the only park located within a designated low moderate income neighborhood that is operated by the town. We look forward to hearing from the public at our next legislative session and developing our applications further before the June deadline. And I would just like to add that I think we recently heard that the executive order did extend the meetings to be held remotely until May 25th. Is that correct? Yeah. So is there, without further ado, is there any comment, question, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Okay. Tax payment plan, 136 Cedar Lane. Whereas the town of Austining is required to collect town, county, and school taxes for the municipality, with the onus of the town to make whole the county and school district for any uncollected taxes. And whereas the receiver of taxes has been approached by property owner requesting a short-term payment plan for the property 136 Cedar Lane, tax parcel designation ID number 80.18-2-2020. And whereas the town board pursuant to Article 5 of the Austining Town Code is authorized by Section 1084 of the New York Real Property Tax Law, before entry of a final judgment may withdraw a parcel for which payment of real property taxes is delinquent from a foreclosure proceedings and enter into an installment plan for payment of all delinquent taxes as well as interest and penalties, and does occasionally grant such a plan and has the discretion to accept or reject any proposal by a residential property owner, providing the owner meets the eligibility requirements set forth in the Section 180-17 of the Town Code, and the payment plan conforms to the requirements for such a repayment plan set forth in Section 180-18 of the Town Code. Now therefore be it resolved, the town board of the town of Austining hereby grants the aforementioned payment plan, which terms comply with the town code, to this property owner who has been determined to be eligible, with the understanding that this sets no precedent going forward or this or any other property in the future.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So the tax receiver has received 2 requests for tax payment plans. We just heard from one of them from property owners. These requests have been reviewed for eligibility. They are eligible for payment plans. We're hopeful that this opportunity will allow these property owners to retain ownership of their properties while catching up on their unpaid taxes. And also that includes penalties for late payment. All those in, any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Okay, tax payment plan, 20 Morris Avenue. Whereas the town of Austining is required to collect town, county, and school taxes for the municipality, with the onus of the town to make whole the county and school district for any uncollected taxes. And whereas the receiver of taxes has been approached by property owner requesting a short-term payment plan for the property at 20 Morris Avenue, tax parcel designation ID number 97.7-7-9, and whereas the town board pursuant to Article 5 of the Austining Town Code is authorized by Section 1184 of the New York Real Property Tax Law, before entry of a final judgment may withdraw a parcel for which payment of real property taxes is delinquent from a foreclosure proceeding enter into an installment plan for payment of all delinquent taxes as well as interest and penalties, and does occasionally grant such a plan and has the discretion to accept or reject any proposal by a residential property owner, providing the owner meets the eligibility requirements set forth in section 180-17 of the town code, and the payment plan conforms to the requirements for such a repayment plan set forth in section 180-18 of the town code. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Boston hereby grants the aforementioned payment plan, which terms comply with the town code, to this property owner who has been determined to be eligible, with the understanding that this sets no precedent going forward for this or any other property in the future.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
And as described, or if there's no questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Approval of contract malt auctions incorporated, resolved that the town board of the town of Austin authorizes the supervisor to sign an agreement with Malt Actions Incorporated, Central Islip, New York, 11722 for services relating to auction of real property following the issuance of foreclosure judgments in accordance with New York State real property tax law and Westchester County tax law, authorizing the town to acquire and or sell certain real property.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So we do unfortunately have a few properties that either already have or
Oh
will.
my gosh.
Say it again?
Oh, sorry, my computer just blanked out. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so as I mentioned, we do unfortunately have a few properties that either already have or will shortly reach the end of the foreclosure process. At that time, the town will be able to auction these properties for sale and recoup the unpaid taxes. We have decided to engage a professional auction company this year, which will allow us to hold the auctions online due to COVID-19 restrictions and hopefully reach a wider audience of potential buyers. All of the costs associated with engaging this firm will be passed on to the eventual buyers. So unless there's any questions or discussion, I would ask all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Okay, if I cut off, my apologies. I don't know why the laptop is just blacking out. So my apologies. That's what that was about.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to take it to Craig tomorrow to see what's wrong. Okay. Resolution adopting local law amending zoning map regarding battery energy storage systems. Whereas an application was made by Borrego Solar Systems Incorporated, the applicant, to construct a standalone battery energy storage system that would be used to supplement power to the local power grid at peak hours by utilizing New York State's Value of Distributed Energy Resources, VDER, mechanism. The proposed project on property owned by the Archdiocese of New York, St. Augustine's Church, located at 381 North Highland Avenue, Austin, New York, and shown on the Town of Austin tax map as Section 81.18, Block 2, Lot 1, the property. And whereas the proposed project is a Tier 2 battery energy storage system as defined in Zoning Code Statute 200-53A and subject to the regulations of Zoning Code Statute 200-31.4, which would require the town board to adopt a local law to amend the town zoning map to include the property in the Tier 2 battery energy storage system floating zone. And whereas, should the town board grant the above reference amendments to the zoning map, the proposed project will also require site plan approval and a conditional use permit from the Town of Austin Planning Board. And whereas the applicant previously appeared before the town board at a work session to discuss the proposed project and provide additional information to the town board. And whereas the planning board served as lead agency for coordinated review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And at its meeting on March 17, 2021, the planning board adopted a negative declaration finding the proposed project does not have the potential for any significant adverse environmental impacts, and also recommended approval of the floating zone by the town board in accordance with Zoning Code Statute 200-52N. Whereas the town board had a duly noticed public hearing at its regular meeting on Tuesday, April 13, 2021 via video conferencing in accordance with the governor's executive orders 2.2.1 and 2.2.15, as subsequently extended, and members of the public having the opportunity to attend and be heard, the public hearing was closed on April 13, 2021. And whereas said local law has been on the desks of the members of the town board of the town of Austin for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday, prior to the adoption of this resolution, and now therefore be it resolved. The town board, after due deliberation, finds that it is in the best interest of the town to adopt said local law, and the town board hereby adopts local law number,
I think did we decide it's 3?
Yes, I think it's number 3.
number 3.
Okay, so we'll just do as amended.
As amended, 3 of 2021 to amend the zoning map to apply the Tier 2 battery energy storage system floating zone to the property located at 381 North Highland Avenue, Austin, New York, for the purposes of the proposed project, and be it further resolved, in accordance with the town's December 31st, 2020 correspondence to the applicant is hereby directed to contact the supervisor's office to discuss entering into a payment in lieu of taxes as authorized by New York Real Property Tax Law Statute 487, and a building permit shall not be issued to the proposed project until an agreement has been executed by the town and the applicant in furtherance of such, and be it further resolved. The town clerk is directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting into the local law book for the town of Boston, to publish said minutes in a newspaper published in the town, if any, or in such newspaper published in the county in which such town may be located, having a circulation in such town, and affidavits of said publication shall be filed with the town clerk, and to file a copy of said local law with the Secretary of State of New York.
Phew. And that's just one of many.
Good job.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so at our last legislative session, we opened and closed a public hearing regarding the floating zone for battery energy storage project at the St. Augustine's property at 381 North Highland Avenue. This resolution on our agenda tonight will allow the town to establish a floating zone for this property for this purpose, so the project can go back to the planning board for final site plan approval. We are excited to put this new local law into effect for a project that has so many environmental benefits. Council Tomadonna or my board colleagues, do you have anything to add? All right, fantastic.
I'm really glad we're adding to and building a microgrid that will support our community in times of overuse of power or lack of power.
Something like that. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Okay, pretty good. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, sorry, roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Wiltshire,
Aye.
Councilmember Feldman,
Aye.
Councilmember Shaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Meyer,
Aye.
Supervisor Levenberg.
Enthusiastic aye.
Okay. Cabaret license, the Briarcliff Manor Restaurant and Catering Corporation. Whereas the Briarcliff Manor Restaurant and Catering Corporation has filed an application for an annual cabaret license for its leased property located at 25 Studio Hill Road, Briarcliff Manor, New York, 10510. And whereas the town board has reviewed the application and attachments thereto, as well as reports from involved departments, including the police department and building department. And whereas, as with its prior application, the applicant is requesting to extend its hours of operation from 11 p.m. to midnight on Thursdays, where the code permits indoor music until 11 p.m. on Thursdays, but gives the town board the discretion to extend the hours a cabaret may play indoor music beyond the times permitted in the code when it is deemed appropriate and consistent with the public safety and welfare. And whereas the town board held a duly noticed public hearing at its regular meeting on Tuesday, April 13th, 2021 via video conferencing in accordance with the governor's executive orders 22.1 and 22.15 as subsequently extended, and members of the public having the opportunity to attend and be heard, the public hearing was closed on April 13th, 2021, and now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby approves the application of the Briarcliff Manor Restaurant and Catering Corporation, 25 Studio Hill Road, Briarcliff Manor, in the unincorporated area of the town of Austin for a cabaret license to have bands and DJs with no more than 6 performers at one time on Sunday through Wednesday from 12 p.m. through 11 p.m. and Thursdays through Saturday from 12 p.m. Through 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. And be it further resolved that the town board recognizes that in the past, the applicant has made various improvements to the property, both inside and outside, in order to reduce noise reaching the neighboring properties, and that during the COVID-19 pandemic, restaurants and event venues are struggling to stay in business with reduced customers and operational restrictions, and are attempting to utilize outdoor spaces to accommodate their customers, ensure social distancing, and reduce the risk of spreading the virus. And therefore, the board believes that so long as the applicant complies with the conditions set forth below, it is appropriate and consistent with the public safety and welfare to allow indoor amplified music until midnight on Thursdays. And be it further resolved, the applicant's ability to play music until midnight on Thursdays is conditioned upon there being no complaints from the public regarding this extended hour. And if the town receives complaints from the public related to the applicant playing indoor music from 11 p.m. to midnight on Thursdays, the applicant will have to appear before the board to reconsider the extension. And to be it further resolved, the town board hereby directs the applicant to ensure strict adherence with all requirements of the town code and state law. And specifically, the town board determines it is necessary in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the town of Austin to expressly condition disapproval upon the applicant's adherence with the following. The applicant must ensure the back doors are kept closed at all times except when being used for ingress and ingress and egress. The applicant shall not play amplified music outdoors at any time. The applicant shall not use amplification of any kind outdoors at any time. Be it further resolved, if the applicant fails to adhere to the conditions stated above, the town board reserves the right to take whatever action may be necessary and appropriate under the law. And be it further resolved, the town board reserves the right to revisit this application and its decisions when the applicant applies for its next annual cabaret license based upon the facts and circumstances presented to the town board in at that time, and this decision shall not establish a precedent for this application or any other applicant seeking a cabaret license. And be it further resolved, the town clerk is hereby directed to send the applicant a certified copy of this resolution.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
second,
Another very well-read and lengthy resolution. Thank you, Martha Kudasaka. And also a big shout out to Council Tomadana, because you can tell that these are not cookie cutter resolutions. This one was absolutely very specifically drafted with our, with the comments that we received from the public in mind, as well as with the issues that are at hand for our restaurants and venues. So we opened and closed a public hearing last meeting on the Briarcliff Manor Cabaret license application. We will be granting the extension of operating hours on Thursday evening until midnight, as we had done in 2019. However, and hadn't gotten complaints. However, in response to some comments from the public, we added some language to this resolution reminding the applicant of being thoughtful of their neighbors to limit the amount of sound that will travel to other properties. We're hopeful that this will help. And as we could hear in the resolution, they have already made a very big attempt to do that over the years. We're hopeful this will help a local business to continue to thrive during these challenging times, while also limiting any nuisance to the neighbors. Any further discussion, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Fantastic.
Okay, resolution to exempt from town taxes real property owned and used by the Village of Austining for water supply. Okay. Whereas pursuant to an intermunicipal agreement, the Village of Austining provides residents of the unincorporated town of Austining with water utilizing the following parcels that contain the Indian Brook Reservoir, the existing water filtration plant, and the location of the planned new water filtration plant, pumping facilities, water storage, appurtenant piping, and watershed buffering lands, all of which are integral to the village, providing adequate water resources for drinking and fire protection. Do you want me to read all the addresses, or can I just skip to them?
Do you want to just read? Just, you know what?
Do you want me to read them? Okay. Old Albany Post Road, 25 Fowler Avenue, 25 Reservoir Road, Old Albany Post Road, Old Albany Post Road, 13 Bracken Road, Waterview Drive, and 17 Cooper Drive, collectively referred to as the Village Water Parcels. And whereas the Village Water Parcels are located in the unincorporated town of Austining and are currently subject to real property taxation by the town, the Austining Union Free School District, and the Austining Public Library. And whereas it is historically unclear why the Village Water Parcels are subject to real property taxation by the town, as the Village Water Parcels provide water to residents on the unincorporated town through one contiguous water system, and it is common for municipal infrastructure and resources to be exempt from real property taxation, and such exemption is authorized by state law. And in fact, the County of Westchester has already exempted the Village Water Parcels from county real property taxation. And whereas the village is in the process of constructing a new water filtration plant, which construction is necessary to meet long-term capacity and water quality needs, including continuing to be able to provide residents of the unincorporated town with water. And whereas water ratepayers, which include residents of the town of Austining and Village of Austining, fund the costs related to the water filtration plant's operation and providing water to the ratepayers, which costs include the real property taxes owed for the village water parcels. And whereas, as a result of the construction of the new water filtration plant, the assessed value of the village water parcels is expected to increase substantially, resulting in a much higher real property tax burden to be paid by the water ratepayers. And whereas, based upon thorough research and analysis conducted by the Village of Austining and presented to the town board at a work session in January 2021, with which the town board agrees the cost to individual water ratepayers will increase significantly to cover the increased real property taxes that will result from the increased assets value of the village water parcels once the new water filtration plant is constructed. Average increase of approximately $370 per year per ratepayer, while exempting the improved water filtration plant property for real property taxation will result in result in a substantially lower increase of property owners' real property taxes to accommodate the budget set by the taxing jurisdictions with no reduction in the budget. Increase of approximately $10 to $30 per year per property owner for school district taxes, which are majority of the village water parcel taxes. And whereas, while the majority of the real property taxes on village water parcels will be paid to the school district, and the town board understands the school district is also considering exempting the village water parcels from real property taxation, the town of Austin recognizes that it is in the best interest of the water ratepayers for the village water parcels to be exempt from all applicable real property taxes, including town real property taxes. And whereas the town board is authorized to exempt the village water parcels from real property taxation pursuant to real property tax law statute 406(3), which provides in permanent part real property owned by a municipal corporation having a population of less than 100,000 used as a water plant, pumping station, water treatment plant, watershed, or reservoir, including necessary connections and apparatuses, shall be wholly or partially exempt from special ad valorem levies and special assessments by any municipal corporation in which located, providing the governing board therefore shall so agree in writing. And now therefore be it resolved, the town board of the town of Austin hereby adopts this resolution to express its written agreement that the village water parcels enumerated above are hereby exempt from real property taxation by the town of Austin, and be further resolved that the town clerk should transmit certified copies of this resolution to the Westchester County Department of Finance, the town of Austin assessor, the town of Austin receiver of taxes, the Austin Union Free School District, the Austin Public Library, and the village Austin treasurer. And be it further resolved that the town of Austin assessor shall make appropriate notation in the respective tax assessment rules that the village water parcels are tax exempt as related to the town real property taxes, and being further resolved that the tax exempt status of the village water parcels with respect to town real property tax will be effective April 27th, 2021.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Martha Kudasaka, I now know why you have Jolly Ranchers in your office all the time. We need to make sure you have a steady supply at home as well while we're still on Zoom meetings. Okay, so thank you very much for reading that. And again, thanks to Council Tomadana for thoughtfully worded resolution. I don't think that there's much more to say about this. We've discussed it briefly and described it briefly in our work session. We know that this is just common sense legislation that will relieve a cost burden of an increased assessment on so many of our residents while the village continues to further its plans to improve our infrastructure so that we all have access to safe drinking water. Is there any further discussion? Any questions? Hearing none. All those, is this not a roll call vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I thank my council members for this unanimous vote, and I am very excited that we accomplished it, and I'm happy to share that information with the village. With that, we're moving into correspondence to be received and filed.
Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby accepts the following correspondence: town planning board meeting minutes, March 3rd, 2021.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And now we have visitor recognition on anything whatsoever. Anybody? We have one person in our audience. We're not sure if you wanted to say anything. Now would be the time if you did. We're looking for your hand. And thanks for staying till the bitter end. With that, I think that we're just going to ask for a motion to adjourn to executive session for advice of counsel and personnel.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Remember to check out grid rewards before the Friday deadline, and please join us next week for our town board work session on Tuesday, May 4th at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. Good night, everybody.